The House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Creator of life, thank you for this day, for the brisk air that fills our lungs and reminds us we are hardy Minnesotans. Bless each of these leaders gathered. Give them listening ears and open minds. Help them work together to be agents of peace and wholeness to all of your people and all of creation. Today we lift up prayers of comfort and peace upon Representative Constantine's father's death, Major John F. Constantine Sr. Surround the family with your love and comfort in the days ahead. Give all those gathered health and safety today. Bless their families who feel their absence as they serve. Fill their hearts with generosity and compassion. In your name, we offer this prayer and bless this place. Amen.
The chaplain for today is Kathy Jones from Our Father's Lutheran Church in Rockford, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will take the roll. Interesting.
Yes. Hearing anything? Ben, how you doing?
The clerk will close the roll. A quorum is present. The member from Polk, Representative Keogh, for what purpose do you rise?
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Members, on February 14th, there was an election result that named in my small community of Crookston, the store, Widman's Candy Store, the #1 candy store in Minnesota. One thing that they are very famous for are chocolate-covered potato chips. Potatoes also raised in my district. Sugar from American Crystal, by the way. Anyway, so, and Representative Newberger says they taste great. Anyway, I brought some chocolate chippers that I will leave in the back room for all of you to enjoy in celebration of this wonderful candy store. And if you would ever like to try it out, you don't even have to come to Crookston, although that would be great. You can also, he mails out all kinds of chocolate. Thank you very much.
The member from Pope, Representative Anderson, for what purpose do you rise?
Point of personal privilege, Mr. Speaker.
State your point of personal privilege.
Well, you may have noticed, members of the House, a lot of blue jackets walking around the halls of the SOB today. In its 18th year, FFA members from across Minnesota gathered today for FFA Day at the Minnesota State Capitol. During the day, students had a chance to meet with their legislators. They discussed vital issues surrounding agricultural education and to see state government in action. The state officers I'm going to introduce in just a minute represent over 10,200 FFA student members from 185 FFA chapters across Minnesota. The FFA mission is to make a positive difference in the lives of students by developing their potential for premier leadership, personal growth, and career success throughout agricultural education. Now before you, down by the dais, are Minnesota FFA state officers, President Jack Ressler, St. Charles, Vice President Kayla Mock, Howard Lake, Waverly, Winstead, Secretary Valerie Early of Spring Valley, Treasurer Brady Wolf of Morris area, the reporter is Aaron Larson, New Richland, Heartland, Ellendale, Geneva, and the Sentinel is Dalton Kempson from New London, Spicer. Your state FFA officers.
The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 89th session, 19th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Wednesday, February 25th, 2015.
If there's no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business has been placed on each member's desk. If there is no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. Second reading of House files.
Second reading House file number 260.
Second reading.
Second reading House file number 449.
Second reading.
Second reading House file number 464.
Second reading.
Second reading House file number 465.
Second reading. Introduction of House files.
The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 1258 through 1280.
First reading, House Files 1258 through 1280. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the adoption by the Senate of the following Senate concurrent resolution herewith transmitted. Senate concurrent resolution number 5, a Senate concurrent resolution relating to adjournment for more than 3 days, signed Joanne M. Zoff, Secretary of the Senate. Peppin moves that the rules be so far suspended that Senate concurrent resolution number 5 be now adopted and placed upon its adoption.
I call on the member from Hennepin, Representative Peppin, to explain the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. We need to suspend the rules so that we can take up the votes so that we can provide for Easter break. So I'd appreciate a green vote.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. The motion prevails.
Peppin moves that Senate concurrent resolution number 5 be now adopted.
I call on the member from Hennepin, Representative Peppin, to explain the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The concurrent resolution 5, which you should have, sets the date for Easter. And I'd like a green vote. Thank you.
Any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Message from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce that the Senate has concurred on and adopted the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File Number 174, an act relating to the financing and operation of state government. The Senate has passed said bill in accordance with the recommendation report of the Conference Committee. Said Senate file herewith transmitted to the House. Signed Joanne M. Zoff, Secretary of the Senate. Conference Committee report on House File 174, addressed to the Honorable Sandra L. Pappas, President of the Senate, and the Honorable Kurt L. Doubt, Speaker of the House. We, the undersigned conferees for Senate File Number 174, report that we have agreed upon the items in dispute and recommend as follows: that the House recede from its amendment and that Senate File Number 174 be further amended as follows. And the Conference Committee report is signed by 3 of the 5 members of the conference from the Senate and all 5 of the conferees on the part of the House. Knoblach moved that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File Number 174 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by Conference Committee.
I recognize the author, the member from Sherburne, Representative Knoblach, to explain the report.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, this is the deficiency bill. We concluded the Conference Committee last night. Just briefly, what is in it again? We have $246,000 for the food assistance program, $10,437,000 for the Minnesota Security Hospital in St. Peter, $2,891,000 for Ebola-related activities, $1,350,000 for the Minnesota Zoo, $69,000 in general fund expenditures, and about $500,000 in other special fund expenditures for the Department of Natural Resources. And then we did keep the House provision of the $40,000 in reductions for the Health Department, the Human Services Department, and the Natural Resources Department to offset the increases that their commissioners received with the action of the governor back on January 1st. Also, members, we kept essentially all the language regarding the governor's salary increases. The salary increases that were given out to commissioners will go back to their January 1st numbers as of the date of enactment of this bill, and starting July 2nd, 2015, this legislature will get back all the authority for commissioner salary increases that were given away 2 years ago with the passage of the bill that did that. Members, the only difference in this Conference Committee report from what passed the House was a 3-line amendment. 2 of the lines were technical in nature. The other added the commissioner or the chair of the Airports Commission, the MAC, to those commissioners, and positions that were covered by this law. So, members, this conference committee report is virtually identical to what left the House, the only substantive difference being that the chair of the MAC now is also covered. And with that, members, I'd be open to questions, and I'd urge your support.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have the conference report essentially that we passed off the House floor last week. I'm glad we were able to resolve on a bipartisan basis this issue and agree on a bipartisan basis. And I note that Representative Knoblach conveniently didn't talk about the 1st of July, which at which time the commissioner's salary, nothing in this bill rescinds or takes away the pay increases that already happened. Last week, we voted on this floor, those who voted yes, to essentially ratify the pay increases that the commissioner put in place, and we are doing that again as we pass this bill off the House floor. And I'm glad we've agreed on a bipartisan basis to a compromise where both Republicans and Democrats are ratifying the decision of Governor Dayton to increase the commissioner pay. It's going to be frozen for a while. July 1st it will go back up, and then in the future we're agreeing on a bipartisan basis that should come back to the legislature. So I'm glad that it's a first sign, I suppose, of the compromise that we can reach here on the House floor and agree on a bipartisan basis to move forward from this issue. I would also note, I want to thank Representative Speaker Daudt personally because as part of this agreement, he has said that that we're not going to politicize these issues of commissioner pay for the rest of the session, that this will not be a subject of discussion going forward. And I think that that's the right, so that we can actually focus on things like transportation, things like education, things like whether people have access to a doctor or a nurse. So I want to thank you, Speaker Daudt, for that part of this agreement as well, and I look forward to having a vote on this bill.
Further discussion on the conference committee report. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of adoption of the conference committee report signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, Senate File Number 174, as amended by conference.
Further discussion on the bill. The member from Sherburne, Representative Knoblach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. Thank you for your comments, Representative Thiessen. I guess the one difference or correction I would make with the comments you made is you said something to the effect that nothing in this bill reduces the salary increase that the governor gave to these commissioners, and I guess I would disagree with that. The bill clearly says that upon enactment, all the increases that were given to these commissioners are taken away. They will go back, yes, they will go back to what they were paid on January 1st from the period of time of the date of enactment through June 30th. The governor then has 1 day to decide if he should give additional increases to the commissioners, that day being July 1st. The governor has the same power on July 1st underneath this bill as he has under current law, except that under current law he's got that power 364 days of the rest of the year as well. And so, members, I guess we'll have to see what the governor does on July 1st, but I do want to just say for the record that with the passage of this bill, the salary increases are being taken away for the next 4 months, and starting July 2nd, the ability of the governor to do what he did is taken away forever, at least until such time as the House makes another ill-advised attempt to give it back to him. But I hope that we will take back this authority that we had for many decades and keep it. And I hope people will support the bill, and I appreciate the minority leader's comments of support for it as well.
Further discussion on the bill. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 108 ayes and 20 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by conference and its title agreed to. Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for today is House File 262. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 262, number 2 on the calendar for today, an act relating to real property, the first engrossment.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Smith, to introduce the bill.
Mr. Speaker, members, House File 262 provides real property technical modifications to the real estate system. This bill makes the system more efficient, user-friendly, and cost-effective. This bill is supported by the Real Property Division of the Minnesota State Bar Association. This bill has bipartisan support. I thank my co-authors, Representative Winkler, Representative Lesh, and Representative Scott. This bill is consumer-friendly. This bill passed through committee unanimously. This bill has been thoroughly vetted by the State Bar Association, and there is no controversy and no objection. There are two parts to this bill. Part 1 deals with the approval process of the Plat design. It gives more control to the local government entity. Part 2 deals with the contract for deed cancellation process within the Torrance process. It makes that system more efficient and time-friendly and user-friendly. I ask for your support of this bill, and I ask for you to vote yes. Thank you.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 262.
Third reading. Further discussion on the bill. The member from Hennepin, Representative Applebaum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will Representative Smith yield to a question?
He will yield. Representative Applebaum.
Representative Smith, can you please explain who, if anyone, is against this bill? Who loses?
Mr. Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Smith.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Applebaum, thank you for the question. The only group that loses in this bill is the attorneys. And even with that, they are still bringing this bill forward for the common good. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the bill? Hearing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Yeah, that's fine. The clerk will close the roll. There being 128 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for today is House File 510. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 510, an act relating to Hennepin County, number 3 on the calendar for the day, the first engrossment.
I recognize the bill author, the member from Carver, Representative Pugh, to introduce the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. House File 510 is a technical fix to a Hennepin County law that was actually passed in 2009. At the time, Representative Zellers carried the bill and made technical changes to Hennepin County's Human Resources Department, policies and procedures. In short, the bill streamlined several very antiquated human resources policies and procedures. Passing the law gave the county flexibility and increased efficiency in their department, which is exactly what government should do. The bill passed the legislature and Governor Pawlenty signed the bill. Then the Hennepin County Board actually passed a resolution and made the law effective, and Hennepin County implemented these policies and procedures. Well, the glitch and the reason that we're here today is that the bill included a local approval clause. Now, local approval clauses are usually not necessary for cities of over 1 million people, or counties, as Hennepin County is. But nevertheless, this particular bill did have that clause. Recently, the Secretary of State noticed that this had not been filed. It was inadvertently overlooked. So really all this bill does is it extends the filing date for the county back from 2009 to send a copy of their resolution to the Secretary of State. So Hennepin County would like to fully execute to the letter of the law. Members, I'd appreciate your support of this bill. It's non-controversial, and I appreciate a green vote.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 510.
Third reading. Discussion on the bill. Seeing no discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. Freiberg votes aye. There being 129 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Report from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Report from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration. Peppin for the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration, pursuant to Rules 1.21 and 3.33, designates the following bills to be placed on the calendar for the day for Monday, March 2nd, 2015, and establishes a pre-filing requirement for amendments offered to the following bills. House File Numbers 134 and 423.
Motions and resolutions. That's fine. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we'll take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. There is a motion at the desk. The clerk will report the motion.
Yep. Loon moved that House File Number 2, now on the calendar for the day, be re-referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Loon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, House File 2, which was on the calendar for today, we did receive a final fiscal note per the Ways and Means Chair's request this afternoon at 2 o'clock, and so because there is a note on it, I don't want to circumvent the process, so we are going to send it to Ways and Means. We do have some concerns about some of the information in it, but we will vet that out in committee, presumably on Monday.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Lesh, to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will Representative Loon yield to a question?
She will yield. Representative Lesh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Loon, you and I talked, and I highlighted several data practices issues which remain in House File 2 and are required to go to Civil Law Committee under Rule 4.16. Is it your intent, or do you have a willingness to send it to fix those items in civil law after Ways and Means?
The member from Hennepin, Representative Loon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to Representative Lesch and members. I did confer with the chair of the Civil Law Committee several days ago about the bill. I will be happy to renew those discussions, and if we feel a referral is necessary, I would not stand in that way.
Representative Lesch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Loon. I understand the rule says that the chair of the Civil Law Committee can make a determination about that, but it's not the final determination. The final determination is, in fact, the rules themselves. So I would ask, and I'll be watching to see what changes are made in Ways and Means. However, the proper place to make any data changes is the Civil Law Committee for clear reasons, because Chapter 13, as well as other government data practices, are a technical area of the law. So I'm going to ask for your indulgence to please do that after you run through Ways and Means. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Sherburne, Representative Knoblach, to the motion.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, I want to rise to speak in support of this motion. You know, when I spoke about this on Monday, it was my belief in looking at the bill, House File 2, that there was no more than a negligible financial effect on the state. And frankly, I still feel that way. I was very surprised to receive a fiscal note back today with a claim in it that there was a cost of $895,000 in the next biennium to this bill. I really have some questions about that. If there was more time, I would certainly be asking those questions now before we got to the House floor to the Office of Management and Budget and the people, the EBO, that prepared this particular fiscal note. But since we only got this today, literally something like 90 minutes before the session started, we really don't have that opportunity. And so I guess I want to err on the side of caution, and I ask that people send this back to Ways and Means so that we can fully look through this fiscal note. That way we will be on the safe side, and if there's any question, we will have met the requirements of bringing House File 2 through Ways and Means, though I still myself really question whether it has to go there. But please support the motion.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and as you might guess, I support the motion as well. And I just want to make just a couple of observations on this. You know, when we have the difference between the feeling of a member on this floor and an actual fiscal analysis done by people in a thorough way, and people are questioning the analysis, and it's fine to, in Ways and Means, go ahead and do that. But if we're going to have a decision between a feeling of the chair of the Ways and Means Committee and an actual fiscal analysis, I'm going to side with the fiscal analysis every single time, and I hope that everyone on this floor does the same thing. And part of the reason I want to raise this today is because some of the complaints I hear about challenging the fiscal note brings me back to 2011, where repeatedly, over and over and over again, we heard the smoke and mirrors argument from the Republican legislature questioning the fiscal analysis going into bills. And quite frankly, it took us about 2 months just to agree on how much a bill particularly cost. And even as we went through the process, we had bills where you made up numbers in the hundreds of millions of dollars to balance your budget. And as a result of that, what happened in 2011? We went on a 20-day state government shutdown. And I think a big part of that is because of exactly what I'm hearing starting to come out of the mouths of Representative Loon and Representative Knoblach today, which is questioning the fiscal analysis. We can ask good questions about it, but to weigh in on the behalf of Representative Knoblach's feelings as opposed to an actual fiscal analysis, I think that's a very dangerous road to go on, and I hope it's not a precursor of what we've seen in the past, because with 20/20 hindsight, that did not work out very well for the state of Minnesota. I also appreciate that we're sending this bill back, because quite frankly, I've never understood the rush to bring this bill forward. And even with this fiscal note, one of the things you'll note in the fiscal note is it says there are going to be very high local costs, and we have not even gotten back, and we won't for a little while, get back the local impact note. But I imagine that local impact note on every one of your school districts is going to be fairly significant. And I hope that we have that information as well before we bring this bill back to the floor. And the interesting thing about the rush to judgment on this bill is Speaker Doubt himself acknowledged that this bill is not going to make a huge difference. It's only a little thing. So if this is only a little thing, I have to question why this is the #1 education priority of the House Republicans. I think I know the answer. It's the #1 priority of the corporate special interests that funded your campaigns. And it's the #1 priority of the people that are sending mail into districts right now, the same people that sent mail during the campaign, undisclosed numbers. That's why we need to pass Representative Winkler's bill on campaign finance disclosure, but unknown spending to push this very issue. So the only thing that I can tell is that it's the House Republicans doing the bidding of the people that spent millions and millions of dollars on their elections. Because if Speaker Dout's words are true, this is only a little bill. It's not going to make a difference. And why that becomes then your #1 education priority, I think that really begs the question. So I'm glad we're sending this back to Ways and Means. I hope that we also send it. In fact, we probably should send it to civil law first if we're going to follow the process the right way. But I guess that's up to all of you. But I'm glad we're sending it back there, and when we come back, I look forward to having a debate on this bill and the fact that it's actually going to lower standards for Minnesota teachers. It's going to make the teachers standing in front of our students meet lower standards rather than the high standards we set here in the state of Minnesota right now.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo, to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Thiessen yield for a couple of questions?
He will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Thiessen, I thought maybe I heard you misspeak there, but are you saying that all the supporters of eliminating our quality blind system that we have for education, all those who think that we should use quality instead of seniority privileges to put disadvantaged youth at the head, the top priority for our education system, that they're serving corporate masters? Is that what I heard you say?
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
What you heard me say is that Speaker Dowd has acknowledged that this bill is not going to make any difference in helping the exact people that you're talking about. So I question why this is your #1 priority.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If Representative Thiessen would yield for another couple of questions.
He will yield. Representative Garofalo.
A couple of points, Representative Thiessen. First of all, I think this is like the 7th or 8th time you've quoted Speaker Dowd on the House floor, and it's starting to get a little bit alarming how much you quote Speaker Dowd when you're on the floor. I think you might be thinking about him just a little bit too much. Might be some other areas for public policy to focus on. The second point I bring up, I want to address this issue because you didn't address it the first time I asked the question. You brought up the issue of corporate support. I just want to make sure there are many committed parents, progressive activists, particularly in the city of Minneapolis that you represent, that are champions and advocates for exactly these sorts of focuses on quality. Are you saying that they're being tricked by corporations, that their motives are impure?
Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that most of the folks in my district, and thank you for referring to Minneapolis, that want to talk about improving education and closing the achievement gap, understand that that's actually going to take an investment like we did in early childhood education, investment that you apparently don't care about since you voted down Representative Murphy's bill recently, investments in our K-12 system, making sure that we're doing everything possible to get this evaluation system working right. But the fact of the matter is, the LIFO part of this bill is really the tiny part of this bill. The big part of this bill is your dumbing down of the standards for teachers in the state of Minnesota. Basically what this bill is doing is opening huge holes in what we require teachers in Minnesota to meet, the standards we have for them. I had a meeting actually with MinCan yesterday, and a great woman came in, a teacher in St. Louis Park. She was the Teacher of the Year in 2006, an African-American woman. And she was talking about, what she's doing in her classroom, and she said she is outraged by the community expert part of this bill, because what she knows is that those the people that are coming in as community experts to teach in front of students are actually going to end up in front of the kids she cares most about. And so I think that really the focus that we ought to have on this bill, the LIFO part, is Representative Dowd has acknowledged again, and I like to quote Representative Dowd because I have such respect for him. But he did say that this is such, and I do, I really do. But he said that was, this is not going to make a difference. I think he's right about that. And so I hope when we have the discussion, what we're really focusing on is this lowering of expectations for our teachers.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I don't want to debate the substance of House File 2, but the minority leader continues to dig a hole that he just keeps digging deeper and deeper on. Would Representative Thiessen yield for another question?
He will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Thiessen, you've said that you are opposed to the idea of these community experts being deployed in schools. Can you tell me what school district in the state of Minnesota, under current law, has the largest number of community experts in their school district teaching kids right now?
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
I imagine it's the city of Minneapolis. So I don't know, though, Mr. Representative Garofalo.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think what we're getting to a point here is, and we're seeing this is probably about the fourth time we've seen this session, where a problem created by the DFL party or already in existence is being blamed on Republicans. We saw this with MNsure. They're actually trying to say that we were responsible for MNsure. We see them blaming us for the pay raises of their side of the aisle. We see them about the Senate. It's only a matter of time before the Senate office building, the luxury office building that you built for politicians, somehow it's going to be our responsibility. But, Mr. Speaker, members, I do take exception, on a more serious note, Mr. Speaker, I do take exception with the idea that somehow improving student achievement or having the highest quality teachers in the classroom is somehow only beneficial to the corporations of Minnesota. I disagree with that completely. In fact, if you look at the kids who are going to benefit the most, it's at-risk kids, and that's why the social justice movement and the progressive movement has very strong coalitions in favor of eliminating our quality blind procedures. But, Mr. Speaker, we'll have that discussion at a future day when House File 2 comes up, and I appreciate the opportunity to engage in this dialogue. Thank you.
Any further discussion to the Loon motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion prevails.
Runbeck moves that House File number 195 be recalled from the Committee on Transportation Policy and Finance and be re-referred to the Committee on Governmental Operations and Elections Policy.
The member from Anoka, Representative Runbeck, to your motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this bill deals both with transit and with Met Council, and it more likely belongs in the Government Operations Committee, and that's where I'm asking it to be moved to. And I've spoken with both committee chairs, and they are okay with this.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Dabney moves that House File number 402 be recalled from the Committee on Commerce and Regulatory Reform and be re-referred to the Committee on Job, Growth, and Energy Affordability Policy and Finance.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. House File 402 deals with repealing the state rule that allows restaurants to take tips, portions of tips from servers and other tipped employees when the tip is left on a credit card. I've spoken to both chairs and they're in support of this re-referral. Thank you.
Any discussion on the Dabney motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Runbeck moves that House File number 899 be recalled from the Committee on Transportation Policy and Finance and be re-referred to the Committee on Governmental Operations and Elections Policy.
The member from Anoka, Representative Runbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, this bill also deals with both Met Council and Transit, and so it can likely go to both committees, but we wanted to start it first in Government Operations, and both committee chairs are in agreement.
Any discussion on the Runbeck motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Pugh moves that House File number 149 be returned to its author.
The member from Carver, Representative Pugh.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. That is my motion.
Any discussion on the Pugh motion? Seeing none, the member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Pugh just let us know what the bill is.
She will yield. Representative Pugh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Representative Thiessen. It is a bonding request for $5 million for the Excelsior Commons.
Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate that, and we typically indulge the authors on this, so we'll be supporting it. I just wanted to know what the bill was.
Any further discussion on the Pugh motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Lincheski moves that House File number 398 be returned to its author.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Lincheski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's my bill, House File 398, and it's not needed this year, and I'd like to return to author.
Any discussion on the motion? The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I really support this motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Thiessen moved that the Winkler Amendment quoted A-17 that was referred to the Rules Committee on February 12, 2015, be re-referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Member, this is the rules provision that we had during the rules debate on the floor that would cap spending this year at $39,337,671, which was the amount many of you, including Representative Anderson very recently, said is the amount that we shouldn't spend any more than on this biennium. We believe on this side of the aisle that we proceeded correctly last year, that the decisions we made in the last 2 years have set this state on the right course, that our economy is recovering and continues to recover. In fact, it's probably among the strongest economies in the whole country. Our unemployment rate is among the lowest in the whole country. Now we're seeing wages beginning to rise, which is really good news for Minnesotans. Economic confidence in Minnesotans is the highest among any state in the country. Certainly, the argument that was made on the campaign trail by the Republicans last year that the decisions we made over the last 2 years was going to tank the economy is not true. The objective evidence is clearly against that. But also on the campaign trail, folks, railed against the tax increases and against the spending that we did in the last 2 years. The fact of the matter is there has not been a single bill, I don't believe, introduced on the Republican side cutting spending this year. All that spending that you complained about on the campaign trail, like spending on all-day kindergarten, spending on putting money into our K-12 system, spending on student scholarships, spending on a tuition freeze. We have all that wasteful spending that you talked about in the campaign trail. We have not seen a single bill to roll back any of that or any other spending. On the other hand, we've seen plenty of bills to cut taxes, and we've seen plenty of bills to spend lots and lots and lots of money, close to $2 billion right now. I guess the question that I think that this bill poses, this amendment to our rule poses, is if you oppose this bill, this amendment, basically what you're saying is you think those tax increases and those spending increases were the right decision. And from what I've seen so far this session, with all the spending bills putting out there, you're essentially ratifying what we did. You're saying actually what the DFL did over the last 2 years wasn't all that bad, and we're not going to roll it back. In fact, Representative Mack in Rules Committee recently said, she doesn't think, and I appreciate this, we can give glib answers or cliche solutions to repeal the tax increases. We realize that what that means for the people of Minnesota. I think that she's right about that. But the reason I'm bringing this motion today is Representative Peppin in the Rules Committee said she didn't think the Rules Committee was the proper place to discuss the issue. The proper place to discuss this rules change was in the Ways and Means Committee. So what this motion does is basically take that rules amendment that we talked about in Rules Committee, that we talked about on the House floor and was referred to the Rules Committee, and re-refer it to Ways and Means so we can have this discussion about whether what you said on the campaign trail was what you really believed or whether you've had a change of heart and you think that the direction that the state is heading on is actually the right one, and that those taxes and the spending that we put in place over the last 2 years is setting the Minnesota, what I really actually believe is true, is setting Minnesota on the right course. And I think it is a great discussion to have in the Ways and Means Committee. So I'd appreciate your support, and I'd ask for a roll call, Mr. Speaker.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion on the motion. The member from Hennepin, Representative Peppin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And would the minority leader yield to a question?
He will yield. Representative Peppin.
Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader. We did hear this in rules the other day, but the part that I'm very surprised about was that it was you wanted to change the rules. And I guess my question is that if this is a serious motion that you want to go forward, why in the 4 times that I asked you, that either the Speaker or I asked you if you had any changes to rules, that you did not inform us that this was a change to rules? Why is this after the fact? Why didn't we discuss this before rules, when I'd given probably 4 or 5 weeks of feedback time for members to give me input as to what would go in the rules? And it kind of seems like theater when you're just putting this in after the case. So before we make a vote on this, I'd be curious what you had to say.
That was quick. The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the reasons was that after we had those discussions and the rules were moving through the process, we saw a mailing come out from one of your representatives, a fundraising mailer, Representative Miller. Yeah, thank you, Representative Miller. You know, again, this was like early February, you know, after we'd had some of this discussion, saying, you know, complaining about all the tax increases, complaining about this, the out-of-control spending, and it kind of just reminded me that that's what was said on the campaign trail. So I just thought it would be appropriate that we actually have this discussion, that we put this in rules, that we put a little bit of restraints around what the leadership is going to...
Representative Peppin, for what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to bring a point of order to the minority leader.
State your point of order.
Under Section 124, Personalities in Debate, Section 1, in debate, a member must confine remarks to the question before the House and avoid personalities. This is an entirely inappropriate conversation we're having, talking about fundraising letters and whatnot, and calling out names in debate. You should tell the minority leader to refrain from calling out personalities in debate.
Mr. Speaker?
Thank you, Representative Peppin. I'm going to defer to rule on your motion for a point of order right now and remind the member to keep the discussion to the order that's at hand, which is the motion. Representative Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Representative Peppin asked me why I didn't bring it up, and I was actually giving the reason. I was answering her question. And I'm assuming Representative Peppin doesn't think that I'm calling into question Representative Miller's motives when I say what he said in his fundraising letter, that he actually thought we spent too much and taxed too much. I'm assuming that's not a derogatory comment from Representative Miller's point of view, but if it is, we should talk some more.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Peppin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Minority Leader Thiessen. I would just point out Mason's rules. As Minority Leader, you may want to pick up a copy and review them before we continue. I would, though, however, I like your motion. I think that the members should absolutely vote for it. I'm looking for, I hope we get a whole bunch of green votes. I think the Ways and Means Committee, as I said, and Rules Committee, I think this is the committee that should discuss this. I do want to remind you also on House Rules that the committee, the Ways and Means Committee does have, I think, 24, 25 days to come up with their budget resolution. So please keep that in mind as I go forward, and perhaps the chair of the Ways and Means Committee could comment as well.
Further discussion on the motion. The member from Sherburne, Representative Knoblach.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I would urge people to vote for the Thiessen motion. I guess it seems to me that it's more appropriate that this particular issue be in the Ways and Means Committee. As the Majority Leader said, the clock starts ticking tomorrow with the budget forecast. We have 25 days to pass a budget resolution in Ways and Means, and we, of course, plan on doing that and following those rules. And having this as part of the discussion certainly seems to make sense. But I do have a couple of questions as long as we're on this, Mr. Speaker. I'm wondering if the Minority Leader would yield.
He will yield. Representative Knoblach.
Well, Representative Thiessen, you know, I guess I wasn't here the last 2 years, so I don't know what all these discussions were about, but this number, $39,337,671,000, seems to be a very precise number. Can you tell me why you chose that number?
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Two reasons, really. I've seen in a number of the pieces of email updates and such coming from your side of the aisle, including Representative Sarah Anderson, using this number as the number she thinks should be the cap for spending. So this is offering all of you who are sending out those e-updates the chance to say what you're telling your constituents to vote for it here in the legislature. And the second thing is that's the number from the November forecast of spending for the 2014-15 biennium. So everybody that said we shouldn't have raised taxes and shouldn't have raised spending, I think the assumption that I'm making is what you mean is that we should spend as much as we spent in the 2014-2015 biennium, and that should be the limit of what we spend. So it is a precise number precisely because of that.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Representative Thiessen, this $39,337,671,000 number, that is the estimate of how much we're going to spend in this biennium. Was that number the same in the February forecast, Representative Thiessen?
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
The February forecast for 2014, I'm assuming you're talking about, and no, it was not.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Thiessen, there's a budget forecast due tomorrow. Do you expect that the budget forecast tomorrow will have exactly the same number as this number, Representative Thiessen?
He will yield. Representative Thiessen.
Thank you. No, I don't think it probably will, because we probably will see some spending changes. And if you want to stick with the spending changes in the February forecast and limit it to the 2014, 2015 November forecast, I'm happy if Ways and Means wants to amend the amendment, the rules provision that's in this motion to match the February forecast. I think that that would be entirely appropriate. But sticking to the 2014-2015 biennium is very consistent with the rhetoric that you all used on the during the campaign, have used in fundraising letters, have used since the campaign about where you think our spending ought to be. If we're not going to grow our government a penny more, which is your rhetoric, again, we think that the direction we're headed is the right one, and I think our economy is bearing that out. But if you really believe what you said on the campaign trail, you absolutely should be voting that. If you believe that there was taxes, that those taxes were unnecessary, you absolutely should ultimately be voting for this provision. If you believe that spending on all-day kindergarten, on 5% for nursing homes, on college tuition freezes was wasteful, like you said on the campaign trail, you absolutely should be voting for this amendment. So if you want to amend it after the February forecast, I'm happy to have you do that. The reality is, if we didn't include those taxes in the budget forecast that we're going to be getting tomorrow, we would be facing a budget deficit today. So if you really believe that those taxes were unnecessary, you shouldn't spend a penny of that budget forecast. You should be cutting those dollars. You should be cutting spending. And we haven't seen a single bill from your side of the aisle that cuts a penny of spending.
Well,
Representative Knoblach.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Thiessen, I guess I wasn't here for any of these discussions that you were talking about were taking place the last 2 years. There were, I believe, 25 other members on both sides of the body that weren't here for all those discussions the last 2 years. I never used this particular number in any campaign literature that I sent out, and I guess you've already told us that the number was different in February and that you expect it to be different tomorrow. And I guess, Representative Thiessen, we will take this under consideration. I do support your motion. I think the Ways and Means Committee is the right place to be considering this, and we will obviously be considering the budget resolution and having a lot of debate about it and what it should be. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, members of the House, I would urge people to support the Thiessen motion.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Thiessen yield for question?
He will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Thiessen, interesting discussion, kind of like Representative Winkler and I had, was it last week or the week before, whenever we had this very same discussion. The ideas you bring forward, I think, are very good. They're ideas that many people on our side of the aisle very much support. Republicans would like a government that is smaller, one that is more responsive to the needs of the people and is more responsible than the one that we've been receiving. But I don't know that Minnesotans believe the notion that Democrats want to make government smaller, even though you got up and tried to articulate that. I would have a question for you, Representative Thiessen. How many bills have you authored this year to repeal a portion of government?
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've only offered one bill this year. I typically don't offer a lot of bills because of my position. And that actually has to do with something I think is really important, which is making sure that our workplaces reflect the 21st century, that families can actually be at the dinner table as well as putting food on the dinner table, the Working Parents Act. And I hope that we actually have some hearings on that bill, because I think ideas around earned sick leave, around making sure that people have fair scheduling, around making sure that people have access to paid parental leave when they have a kid, or paid family leave when they have a kid, or when they have a sick relative, I think that that is exactly the direction that our state should go. So I hope the one bill that I actually have offered this year gets a hearing in the Republican side. But as I said, Representative Drazkowski, we think the direction we set the state on over the last 2 years is the right one, and I think our economy is bearing that out. First of all, Mr. Speaker, since Representative Knoblach and Representative Peppin support this motion, I'd like to withdraw the roll call request.
The roll call has been withdrawn.
I think we have been on the right course. The interesting thing is all the people that talked about all this wasteful spending on things, again, like all-day kindergarten and scholarships and college tuition freezes and 5% for nursing homes, all that wasteful spending that we did in the last 2 years, we haven't seen any of those things. A bill offered by anybody on your side that you told your constituents you would do. We haven't seen any of those, and that's what I would more be expecting to see.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Thiessen, it sounds like the answer is no. Representative Thiessen, Mr. Speaker, Representative Thiessen would yield again.
He will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Representative Thiessen, we had probably 10 or 11 budget bills, I'm guessing, that comprise the history-leading largest budget in the state of the history of Minnesota, that spent so much money that we had to raise taxes by $2.1 billion on the people of Minnesota in a variety of ways, on workers, on smokers, on families, on businesses, you name it. Did you vote against any of those bills? Any of those leading history budget busting bills that we had from the last biennium that put us on this huge government growth course we're on?
Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No, I didn't vote against the bill that did all-day kindergarten. I didn't get a vote against Representative Pawlowski's bill that froze tuitions. I didn't vote against Representative Huntley's bill that put 5% in for nursing homes and for long-term care workers. I didn't vote against a tax bill that ultimately actually raised about $1.6 billion, but we don't want to be getting in, I suppose, into the weeds on that. But that actually reduced property taxes in a significant way in this state through direct property tax relief and otherwise. I did not vote against a bill that closed the disparity between rural schools and metro area schools. I didn't vote against the Jobs and Economic Development Bill of Tim Mahoney that actually invested in greater Minnesota economic development and in broadband. I didn't vote against the bill that we had on the House floor in the last 2 years that did any of those things because, as I've said before, Representative Drazkowski, I think we've actually set the state on the right course. And the most interesting thing to me about that is, what do I see the priorities of the Republicans now in terms of spending? Well, it's on broadband. It's on workforce housing, which we made a very significant $10 million investment in, as well as more investment in other types of housing. We see that coming out of the House Republican caucus. In greater Minnesota economic development, we see those types of proposals coming out of the Republican caucus. I guess we haven't seen anything on dealing with tuition and tuition freezes yet. I hope that we yet see that coming out of the Republican caucus. And talking about nursing home funding and another 5% for long-term care workers. Again, building on the work that we did, the bills that I voted for that you didn't vote for. So I do think that we're heading in the right direction. I've said that from the very beginning of this colloquy. But the fact of the matter is, you didn't believe in those, and I haven't seen any bills introduced to cut that spending from you. So that's really, I think, the question before us, Representative Drazkowski.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Thiessen. As I suspected, the answer is no there as well. So, Representative Thiessen, I've brought forward bills to repeal portions of government. I got about 6 or 8 bills out there right now to repeal portions of government. Many of my colleagues, many of the Republicans here are doing the same in order to bring reforms to this out-of-control spending that the Democrats brought over the last 2 years. And Representative Thiessen, you mentioned and you believe that the increased expenditures in LGA and county program aid actually brought property taxes down. Well, they did not. As a matter of fact, Representative Thiessen, I've got a quote of yours from the radio from about 3 months ago where you acknowledged publicly on the radio that LGA and county program aid increases are not lowering property taxes and it's not working. You said it yourself. And so, Representative Thiessen, we have to take a different tact here. We need a different road for Minnesota, one that actually brings and reins in the growth in government, the very same growth in government, the trajectory that's unsustainable that you led this legislature to in the last 2 years. And we are going a different direction. We are going the direction we told Minnesotans when we campaigned over the last year that we were going to have their interest first, the people of Minnesota first, rather than one that just controls or continues to grow government at rates that are unsustainable. We are going that direction. Your assertion to us here today that you would like to bring forward a rule for $39 billion, which would require, Representative Thiessen, let me remind you, to take the projected growth and have an actual cut to the projected growth by about $2 billion, give or take. That's what it would take to do that. We have seen nothing from you to suggest you're going that direction. Problem is, Representative Thiessen, we don't believe you, and neither does Minnesota.
Further discussion. The member from Hennepin, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Minority Leader Thiessen. You've mentioned a couple of things with my name in it, and what I think back is to the people that I heard from in my district after the last 2 years of the $2.1 billion tax increase that hit every single person in the state of Minnesota. No one was left behind when it came to the $2.1 billion tax increase. And they wanted to be left behind, trust me. They did not want to have to pay for that. And what it meant for them is you talked about how you wanted to have families to be able to sit around the supper table and all be there at once. But they had to work longer hours. They had to work harder to pay for taxes. In fact, I recently received an email from one of my constituents she's a mother, single mother with 3 kids. 3 kids in college. Can you imagine? 3 all at the same time in college. And when she heard about the governor's pay raises, she said, "This is my first time ever writing my legislator. I have never done this before." But that just was the tipping point. To her, it said, government is out of control and is run amok. Compounded by the fact that we're paying, $187 million now for that Senate office building? If you take a look, you can go look at it right now. That's a little present that you left for us that we're going to have to be dealing with for years. Tax dollars going towards that state office building over there that we're paying for years. Not to mention all the pay increases that happened in the last 3 years. I've got the spreadsheets. It's over $1.4 million, and that doesn't include all of them. All on the backs of Minnesota families. All on the backs of the people that I represent who said, enough is enough. We've seen lots of reports this session, in the last year in fact, where there's examples of government being run poorly. Whether it's the Minneapolis Community Action Program, over $800,000 of taxpayer dollars wasted, spent on trips, spas, all kinds of different things. To the public, that sends the wrong message. It says to them, we're not doing a good job of managing their tax dollars. We're here to do better. We just passed the deficiency bill to address some of those issues. And whether you like it or not, Representative Thiessen, we cut $40,000 out of the agencies on the pay raises that Governor Dayton put in place. And there's more work to be done. And I don't take kindly when people belittle bills like Representative Crescia's that we passed just the other day, trying to get immediate relief for children that are suffering from abuse. If you don't think that's something that's important, I think that you need to reconsider your priorities. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, and I'm excited to work with all of you to get those things addressed. But if we can't honestly say that MNsure has been a success, that the commissioner pay raises have been something that's a shining moment in our lives here in the state legislature, we got to make some improvements, and hopefully you'll work together with us in getting that achieved.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, for a while there was a poster around you often saw that said, everything I really needed to learn, I learned in kindergarten. Well, sometimes I think everything I needed to learn, I learned from having kindergartners. And the thing I've always stressed with my kids, particularly when they've done something I'm maybe not too happy about, is show me, don't tell me. Because they can tell me whatever they want, but what really matters is what they do. And I apply that same lesson here on the House floor, where we sometimes get glorious, thundering rhetoric, articulate and passionate, that doesn't connect with what people actually do. I want to go back to earlier this month, maybe late last month, 8:15 in the morning, the first bill being heard in the Property Tax and Local Government Division. What did that bill? Did it cut government? Did it reduce property taxes? No. That bill was the Majority Leader's bill. Chair Drazkowski chose it as the signature bill to open up this session. And what did it do? According to the nonpartisan staff here, it's going to raise property taxes in the metro area and increase state spending. Raising property taxes, not unlike what the party opposite did 4 years ago when they raised property taxes across the state with the elimination of the homestead provisions. In fact, raised those 8 times higher in greater Minnesota than they did in the metro area. Maybe they're trying to make up for that now by targeting property tax increases in the metro area, but increasing state spending. Members, I urge your support for the Thiessen motion, because when we need to get control of state spending, we also need to get control of what we say to our voters, to the people of Minnesota, and what we actually do to the people of Minnesota. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Peppin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I just wanted to respond to Representative Dabney's comments. Representative Dabney, I'm not sure if you remembered the bill. Maybe I'll enlighten you. The community of Rogers that I represent pays annually more than 20% of their net tax capacity out in local government aid, or excuse me, in fiscal disparities. And that's over $1 million a year in a small community of about 11,000 some people. And our budget for the city of Rogers is about $4 million. So for you to say it raises property taxes isn't accurate. It gives other communities less revenue, and it's the community's responsibility to budget if they get a slightly small thing of it. I'm not asking my community to pay none in fiscal disparities. I'm saying when my community isn't getting their services that others are, that we would be paying less, a less of an amount. My bill caps it at 10%. So it's really not very fair for you to say that it raises property taxes, because it's the other community's job who would get less money to budget. It does not raise the property taxes. That would be the community's decision, and the net impact on each community was rather minimal. And you know that. And representing the city of Minneapolis, which receives an awful lot of local government aid from the taxpayers of Minnesota, in which my community does not receive, you should be very careful with your words, Representative Dabney.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Anderson ask to yield to a question?
She will yield. Representative Winkler.
Representative Anderson, the last time we spoke about this, and this is the Thiessen motion, but it was originally my amendment to the rules. It's now going to Ways and Means. You weren't on the floor, and I was going to ask you if you were still a member of the Not a Penny More caucus. And I don't know that you're going to address that today, but the 2 questions I have. When you responded to the constituent, the single mother with 3 kids in college, the question is, did you tell her that you would actually do something about the pay raises, aside from delay them for 4 months? And did you tell her that your top priority for tax relief in Minnesota is dead rich people, not the every single man, woman, and child that you complained about having their taxes raised on to fund the Opportunity for All budget that we passed?
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Winkler, you don't serve on the tax committee, which is unfortunate. We had a couple of different bills. You might want to talk to Representative Peter Fisher. I know that he had a bill to change the estate tax. I think he brought it up to, let's see, about 4 million, 5 million, I can't remember. Representative Fisher could probably fill you in on that. And then I think it was either today or yesterday, I know that Representative Earhart had a bill, and Representative Seltzer had a bill too. And I'm guessing that they had bills to change the estate tax because when you had control of the legislature, you decreased the exemption for the estate tax from $5 million down to $1 million. And then what, or do I have it wrong? I'm sorry, Representative Lincheski. I think it went down then to $2 million. They changed it. I'm not sure. I've got it wrong. Well, I apologize for that. But I will tell you this, Representative Winkler. What I'm seeing is a lot of bills coming from your side of the aisle attempting to fix what happened in the last 2 years. And I don't blame you. I'd want to fix it too. In fact, that's what we're working on doing. So hopefully that after you've seen the results of what's happened over the 2 years, that you'll join us in making these fixes and we can have a collaborative opportunity in doing that.
Mr. Speaker, I have the floor. Thank you.
Sorry, Representative Winkler.
Representative Anderson, I'll take it that you probably did not explain that the tax bill that you voted against funded the tuition freeze and the increase in the state grant program. And I don't know if this person qualifies based on income. You said single mother. You sort of implied that this was somebody who maybe wasn't doing so well financially and was dealing with 3 kids in college. So it's possible that our budget that funded a tuition freeze and an expansion of the state grant program didn't help this person at all. And given the concern she had about the commissioner pay raises, which you've done nothing about for any kind of sustained period other than this 4 months, I'm sure that based on her concern about that, she's probably not in the upper income tax bracket that pays any additional money in taxes in Minnesota, because we just tax people who are doing very well on their income to fund all these good things. So you probably didn't tell her about any of that stuff, but I do want to say that though I don't have the privilege of serving on the tax committee, I have heard about a lot of passion that you have around the issue of the estate tax and the priority that you place on it. And I do think it's proper that you would give an explanation to everybody in Minnesota that your priority is tax treatment and tax relief for a favorite few rather than tax relief for everybody, because I don't think that you have introduced a single bill to repeal the 4th-tier income tax, which you said was going to kill jobs, hurt Minnesota, and you've said today has bloated government. Until you're ready to repeal the 4th-tier income tax, I don't think you can make that statement about trying to help anybody in Minnesota that you claim that you help or care about.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. My dear friend, Representative Winkler, said that the Republicans are trying to balance the budget, and I'm paraphrasing here, on rich dead people. Representative Winkler, you may wish to look at the tax committee minutes where we had a Fisher bill for the estate tax, to raise the threshold on the estate tax. You may wish to look at 2 bills yesterday from my friend Chair Earhart. 2 of them, not 1, 2. Representative Seltzer had the same type of bill. And you know what? I like them. They're good bills. It should be the Earhart-Davids bill, the Seltzer-Davids bill, the Fisher-Davids bill. Fine pieces of legislation that our tax committee has looked at. And so it's really not an accurate comment to say the Republicans are favoring or wish to give special treatment to rich dead folks, because the bills we're hearing are from the DFL. And they're good bills, and I hope you'll support them. Because when I die, if I die, these are very good bills, and I hope members will support them when we get there. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I just need to respond to the majority leader. One of the things that I learned early here is to respect the work of our nonpartisan staff and not to misrepresent it. Because they work hard for all of us, and they work hard for all Minnesotans. And I will invite the majority leader now to set up an appointment with my office, and I will walk her through the note on that bill and explain how the first bill heard in the property tax division this year would raise property taxes in Representative Anderson's district, would raise property taxes in Representative Whalen's district, would raise property taxes in Representative Will's district, would raise property taxes in Representative Lincheski's district, would raise property taxes in districts around the metro area, and cost the state more revenue. It's not my opinion. It's not a misrepresentation. It's a black and white fact from our nonpartisan staff. Thank you.
The member from Morrison, Representative Kresha.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, the best thing about carrying a lot of bills is people can actually pronounce my name right. A lot of things have come up and tossed out, and I want to give another perspective. So I'm carrying the broadband bill. It's a $50 million bill. The first amendment that I was thrown on that bill was to add another $50 million to it. Why? The allocation of grants for that was 19.4. We had requests of 44, but immediately we wanted to double the amount, and we didn't even know if we had the need yet. That's not efficient. That's not what we're heard. I'm working on the early scholarships bill with no dollar allocation to it because we don't know yet. We need to start, and we need to build a needs assessment. As a CFO, I didn't go out with a number and say, here's the money you're going to spend. I said, let's look at the solutions, let's look at the problems, and let's build from there. I have the child protections bill. And in that, one of the hardest things about that bill, and the reason we haven't been able to push it forward, is because DHS came out with a fiscal note that adds FTEs and not a single dollar to the grassroots efforts of touching kids. Not a single dollar. Not a penny. But we're going to add people at DHS to push paperwork around while kids are in need of this solution. That's not efficient government. That's things that we should question. And I know your side questions it just like us. We're trying to solve these problems. We're trying to get to solutions. And if a number is what you want, and if a number is what you want to fight about, then we're glossing over the solutions. We're absolutely glossing over the problems, and we're fighting about the wrong things. I wasn't here when all those other fights happened, but I was knocking on doors when people were saying, you're too partisan down there and you're not governing. We're trying to govern. We're trying to find solutions. I've heard them in education finance. I've heard them in education policy, and so have you. There's great ideas from both sides of the aisle. And if we're just going to add zeros and fight about that rather than find out how much things actually cost, then this fight is going to hurt Minnesota, and that I think is wrong. This fight is going to hurt kids, and that is wrong. We have to target our dollars because we don't have enough of them. That's a stark reality of what we have. So criticize me for the bills I'm carrying, that's fine. Know the solutions I'm trying to bring, but don't just double my number until you know how much it costs.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, tomorrow we get to see what the property tax levy increases will be. And I'm guessing what we'll see, they'll be in the high 200s. And that's a result of the last 2 years. On top of getting a $2.1 billion tax increase, that hit every single person in the state of Minnesota. If you look at the report, even when you add in the PTR money, you still taxed everybody in the state of Minnesota. And on top of that, you're going to see some of the higher property tax increases in that report tomorrow.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Peppin. The member from Washington, Representative Schoen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I just wanted to rise in support of the Thiessen motion.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, just a couple corrections. One correction, I had said that the Seltzer bill was an estate tax bill. It was actually a gift tax bill, which I fully support. I guess I'm number 2 author on that. I want to get on the Earhart bills, and I think I'm already on the Fisher bill. The other issue is on the floor here, there's some comments made about the estate tax. The estate tax in the, I don't know if it was 13 or 14, when Chair Lenczewski was chair of the committee, did start raising the Minnesota portion of the estate tax. There's an inflator on the federal side at $5.4 million. This legislature in the past, I think it was 2011, carved out some situations in the estate tax law for farmers under certain circumstances and small businesses under certain circumstances. But the movement of Minnesota was like at $1 million or so, and it's working its way up. It's pretty close to $2 million, and it continues to go up, which I support. I'd just like to get there a little quicker. That's why, whether it be the Earhart bill or the Fisher bill, these are some good ideas that we need to look at very closely.
Any further discussion on the Thiessen motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say no. The motion prevails. Announcements. The member from Sherburne, Representative Knoblach.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, the Committee on Ways and Means will meet at 9:30 a.m. this Monday to take up House File 2, and after that talk about the budget forecast. 9:30 a.m. on Monday for Ways and Means.
Any further announcements? Seeing none, the member from Hennepin, Representative Peppin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m., Monday, March 2nd, 2015.
Representative Peppin moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m., Monday, March 2nd, 2015. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails. Representative Peppin.
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Peppin moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails, and the House stands adjourned until 3:30 p.m., Monday, March 2nd, 2015.